Obviously, the time continuum has been disrupted, creating this new temporal event sequence resulting in this alternate reality.
English, Doc.
I'll tell you something I've fallen out of favour with recently. I said recently, over the last few years and stuff. It's ongoing series of anything, either TV, movies, or comics. I like stuff to have a beginning, a middle, and an end now. I like stuff to have a conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, being able to go out and constantly buy X-Men comics was fine when you were in your teens. Because you never wanted that kind of stuff to end. You wanted it to keep going.
True.
But you gradually realise that it essentially becomes a soap opera.
Yeah.
There is no conclusion. Everything is a middle. Everything is in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
The actors have already had their origin, and they're certainly not going to reach a conclusion.
No.
Because they need stuff to keep going.
Yeah.
So this is why I always tend to favour independent comics now.
Yeah.
Because they are, for the most part, done with the intention of having a beginning, a middle, and an end.
They might a story that needs to be told.
They might have a really long arc, but it has a conclusion in mind. It's got a goal that is gradually trudging towards.
Yeah.
Or quickly heading or hurtling towards for the 5 to 6 issue ones.
Yeah.
Which I love.
No, I think you're right. I think also you kind of like when you get older, you see the futility of it. It's just like, I'm just going to keep buying these forever, and it's never going to happen.
Purely from
do you know what I mean? It's like, I just feel like, yeah, totally. I don't see the point.
I mean, in terms of narrative, I just want to know what happens to certain characters. I want to know what is their purpose.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I've always bought graphs, because like they're always a collected thing, and it kind of has an ending. You know, even if it's like X-Men or something, it'll be a story arc that's collected into a single thing, like Age of Apocalypse or something.
I mean, well, in that case, you could compare those ones to Watchmen, in the sense that the Watchmen was written with the intention of just being a standalone. These characters have existed, and that's sort of at the tail end of their story.
Totally.
Once it reaches a conclusion, it has the potential to go on, but it's not going.
Yeah.
It's a self-contained arc. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And you can't argue that with certain graphic novels and stuff.
I think that's why I've always been sort of a graph person. I mean, like I've always bought those anyway, because I never really had the option to do the series stuff because my only comic shops were miles away.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to live in...
So, I couldn't do that. I could only buy, I'd only go there, once a month, or if that, or, a couple of times a year, maybe.
And you can't really maintain a collection, do you?
No, exactly. So I'd just buy a chunky graphic novel.
I mean, I was lucky enough to actually have to pass a couple of comic book shops when I was going to and from college.
Yeah.
I did have a choice. I could have just walked around, but they were on the way to the bus stop to get home from college. So I'll stop off there. So I was stopping off there daily.
Yeah,
which didn't make a lot of sense because they only restocked the shelves once a week. Why go in there daily? What's the point? Got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I'm sad like that. It's either this or go home and catalogue my VHS.
Fuck off! It was a good system. There was one guy at the Forbidden Planet up in Newcastle, and throughout the period in the 90s, I was constantly asking him, "Is the next issue of Battle Chasers here in yet?"
Yeah.
And this was at the tail end of Battle Chasers, the printed runs and stuff, when they were just not being released ever. And eventually I obviously moved away from Newcastle.
Yeah.
But I went back there a couple of years back, and he was still working there. And he sort of looked at me and said, "Did you used to come in here all the time?" I said, yeah. He recognised me.
Yeah, he's probably going, "Jesus, no, we still haven't got it."
There's something I've been wanting to do, but I don't think I'll have the time to do it before the Battle Chasers game comes out.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a parody.
Oh, yeah.
Of Battle Chasers, and it wasn't...
Well, in sequential art?
No, not even that. I was actually going to make a proper comic.
Sick.
And it was going to be the issue number where they dropped it off from.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't going to be issue 1, it was going to be issue 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, wherever it is they dropped it off.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, right, this is what happens then. And just going to be a whole heap of bullshit stuff, taking the piss out of them non-stop.
Brilliant.
The character Red Monica.
Yeah.
Yeah. one of the last issues that were put into print, she was injured or something, getting patched up. In my version, she was going to have one of the boobs was going to be punctured, so she was just going to have like one boob for the entire thing.
Being deflated.
The big robot guy.
Yeah.
What I was going to do for him, he was going to have the head of Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. So he's going to look virtually the same, but he's going to have the head.
Yeah. Oh God.
Nolan was the wizard guy was basically just going to be a guy from Dragon Ball Z.
Brilliant.
And rather than a pair of gloves, the kid character was just going to have a massive pair of boots, massive pair of stomping boots.
Spot the difference.
Oh, and the big warrior guy, what was his Garrison, the guy with the sword.
Yeah.
He was just going to have this fixed expression all the time. Even if he was talking about something calm and all that, he was going to have like that sort of the angry Maduriera face that he does. It was just going to be fixed in that all the time.
It's so surreal.
It's like, would you like another drink? Yes, please. Just that face. Yes, please.
Alright, chill out.
But I don't think I'm going to have time to do it because my work rate is even slower than theirs. And we've been waiting like 20 years for them to get around to completing battle chases.
That's not far wrong. It's probably about 15 easy. Shit.
You'd think with him being nagged about it non-stop, he would have just said, right, fuck it, I'll just do it gradually over a little period of time.
The huge heaps of money prevent him from hearing or caring.
I mean, that is a
I can't hear you over the mound of money.
I mean, what was the last comic we saw J. Scott Campbell do? I think he got 2 issues into a new series that he was doing, and then that just dropped.
Yeah, God knows. He just does covers. And
I know, that's all he does. He must just...
it seems to be the thing now, same as Mike Mignola, just does covers and shit.
But if that's where you make the money, what's the point in doing other stuff?
Well, yeah, you get to that point, don't you, where you're so famous that people just pay for you to do the cover for it. They don't want you to do an issue anymore.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you get to when you stop doing something for personal satisfaction. Because, I mean, you start drawing because you enjoy drawing.
Yeah. Like, I don't stop drawing. Like, I do it for fun.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
there's stuff I do at work or whatever, and then and then I'd go home and draw something else.
I mean, I very rarely actually get the chance to actually sort of just stop and draw stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that I draw is towards a project which I've got in mind.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't really get the chance to sort of stop and just doodle something.
I find, though, I go admit, like, if I don't have a structure or a subject matter to work through, it turns to mush.
Well, I mean, having an idea in your head and brainstorming.
But I've got, like, sketchbooks where they go a bit wanky or something in the middle, and I know it's because I didn't have a comic storyline or something to be designing for.
Well, that's what you're doing.
You're
designing a character when it goes on. I mean, I think the most recent bit of sketching I did was I was rejigging Alaska Rhodes' costume.
Yeah.
So it would actually function properly. Because at the moment it works from certain angles and stuff, but if you catch it from other angles, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Not that her absurd proportions help. But, so I've spent the last couple of days fashion designing, basically, trying to work out how to get this costume to work properly.
It's potentially one of the most 90s costumes of anything you've
That was the whole
done.
point. I mean, her inspiration is Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, but it just feels so like 90s X-Men.
That was the whole point of that character. I wanted to sort of recapture that 90s stuff because that
little pockets everywhere and tiny feet.
I mean, I'm not going that far. But I mean, that 90s aesthetic, that 90s approach to female character design is frowned upon now.
Well, yeah, because of what's his face, the guy who did all the terrible, the guy who invented Deadpool and just can't draw.
Oh man, Rob Liefeld.
Yeah,
I still can't believe that he invented Deadpool.
Thing. Yeah, well,
did he invent him or first draw him?
He invented him, but in that way that it's basically just Deathstroke.
Knockoff character. Right. But
there is a Batman issue where Deathstroke meets him
Really?
Yeah, he comes in from another dimension.
That makes sense.
But they altered him just enough to get away with it, but it's blatantly Deadpool.
Oh right, so it's just a piss take.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about it being a crossover.
No, it's not official. But it is it's so blatantly Deadpool. Helen sent it to me. It's fucking hilarious. You've got Deathstroke goes mental trying to kill him, and he can't.
He can't because he keeps regenerating.
Yeah. He's just taking the piss out of him the whole time, and it's really good.
But yeah, the 90s approach to designing female characters is frowned upon now because it's seen as demeaning towards the female characters.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that it's actually the writing which demeans a character rather than the visuals.
Yeah.
Am I wrong on that?
I don't know. I think there's. I think you can get around it in the writing, but
you can draw a character which is designed specifically to appeal to the male audience, which is what Alaska is. I'm not denying that in any shape or form. But I've always felt that you can draw a character like that, but if you empower them, it's just me trying to double think my way out of the situation or something.
I don't know. I think it's an argument for it. Yeah, for sure. That's it. I mean, it's as long as you don't make them that object in the writing, then why not?
I mean, it's in no way original, that kind of character that I've come up with in Alaska anyway, because it's been done 1,000 times before. And again, that's not an excuse.
No,
that's me accusing myself of unoriginality.
Attempting to have some nice sort of homages to the 90s style.
Which I miss.
In Candleman at some point. Because I love putting loads of pockets on things. That's just something. And also, why wouldn't you? It's actually quite practical.
I mean, I've been looking for belts and stuff which have lots of pockets on them.
Yeah. You want those ones that go around the thigh and stuff.
I mean, you can get dirt cheap ones from China and stuff, but they've got loads of zips and stuff on them, and they clank and jingle.
Yeah.
Which you don't want when you're sort of walking around. I would love to just stroll around with a utility belt on. Didn't have to have anything in it. Just something with loads of pockets on it. Come on, would you like to do that? Everyone would like to do that.
I've got a belt that I got for a Candleman costume a few years ago, so it's it's an army surplus thing, and it has just loads of pockets all the way around it. It's got little ammo pouches. They're great.
Oh, I'm a fan of Fallout. In I think it was Fallout New Vegas, there's a particular type of trench coat you can wear, a duster coat that you can wear. And I got a dodgy replica of that. I'll just go and get it, actually. I've just got to show this thing off. It was a lot cheaper and nastier than I thought it would be.
Necessarily going to work on radio.
No, I'll cut this bit out. Yeah, but it's got the pockets. It's got the pockets, but it's completely impractical. When the fuck would I wear this?
When the end of the world comes.
But I mean,
you can finally potch around in it, and people will be like, "Oh, we got it."
You've seen
Shoot
my...
him and take it.
I mean, feel how cheap and nasty that is.
Oh, weird.
That's really... I overpaid for this. It was purely because it was the Fallout thing.
Yeah.
The nod towards the Fallout games. But you've seen the proper riding coat that I've got.
Is it for cosplay?
That big... if I ever cosplay for a Fallout thing, I'll wear that. And then die of heat exhaustion in the convention hall.
Yeah, it's all quilted. I'm assuming it's very warm.
I'm putting it on there. I didn't realise it stinks as well.
Really?
It's got this
sniff at it. Go over here and sniff.
The sort of...
Oh God!
Yeah.
The fuck is it?
I don't know, but I bet it burns well.
It's really soft. I'm wondering what it's actually made out of.
Well,
it's probably actually leather.
They said it was. They said it was leather, but if it is leather,
it isn't.
If it is leather, it's the cheapest, shittiest leather.
Explain why it smells the way it does.
Well, it's been treated.
Yeah, I think it might be. Phil. It doesn't feel synthetic.
Doesn't it?
No.
You see, I can't tell because it's so wafer thin.
Potentially could be real.
I mean, it was sold as leather.
Yeah.
So it might be leather, but what kind of leather? Goat leather, maybe?
Maybe. Fuck, it's really warm.
I know.
I bet it's really nice in the winter.
Well, probably not, because there's no way to do up the front of it.
True.
It was just meant to be worn open.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Well, if it is, I don't feel as ripped off as I did. But it just feels cheap and nasty and icky.
So he's breaking him.
It's been airing.
Drag it behind a car for a few
It's
hours.
been airing for months. I was hoping to at least have got rid of the smell.
Do what they did with Indiana Jones's jacket, put it in a car park and just drive over it a few months.
Is that how they did?
Yeah, they bought like a leather jacket and then just beat the shit out of it. Drove a car over it like 4 or 5 times.
Was that the classic black one? The one
Yeah,
you wore
so
at-
for Raiders.
It's weird how it's amazing how they age stuff. I mean, one of the movies we used to watch as kids was Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yeah.
We had that on VHS, and at the tail end of that, after the actual film itself, there was a sort of making of section, and I vividly remember one of the costume designers talking about how they got the zombie outfits to look like they did. They just went to a bunch of thrift stores.
Yeah.
Bought a bunch of stuff and then left it out in the yard, in the garden. They beat the shit out of it.
Yeah.
They tore them up and stuff. And they were going on about how we just left them out in the backyard and let the bugs crawl through them. There's probably some bugs still in them and stuff like that. I distinctly remember her saying that. That is something she said. And I was thinking, right, I'm not going to be a dancer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a backup dancer for Michael Jackson. Fuck that.
Like a tarantula in there or something. Jesus Christ. There's one of those things that you get with like cheaper, low-budget films and stuff. There's two things that like they never do that always sort of let them down. One is like overlighting stuff. Like they'll light stuff properly, so it ends up looking like a TV movie. And they never weather things. Like props are never weathered.
New.
Yeah, like everything, and it's just like, yeah, that's great. Now dry brush the shit out of it and make it look like it's been kicked down a flight of stairs, and it'll look really, really cool. I mean, it's like that Han Solo blaster I made for you. It's like, that looked cool. And then I put loads of like dry brushing and dirt on it, and it just looked awesome.
Well, that's why it's still in the curio cabinet, because it fits in there. It looks brilliant.
It was actually the guy who... I can't remember his name now. The guy who's on Mythbusters.
Mm-hmm. I've never watched Mythbusters. So
but he has like a web series because he used to work as an effects artist for like Lucasfilm and all those kind of things. And he does like how-to guides on like how to do props and how to build stuff.
God, I should really watch some of this stuff.
Yeah, he's amazing. And he just taught me like loads of cool stuff.
Because I've always wanted to build stuff.
How to weather up, how to do... Yeah. Because he had this really good tip on like weathering stuff, and it was like, the weird thing was it was like using ochre paints and stuff. So like using browns and dirt colours, as opposed to... Because everybody does the dust and scratches and they do the sort of worn look. But he was like, you add that in as well. And that just like took it to another level. I was like, holy shit, that's really
makes it look hyper realistic.
Yeah, you just get all this kind of like dirt caught in all the cracks.
You actually have to go up and have a look at it to say, oh right, that is a prop.
Yeah. It shouldn't look as good as it does for the money it costs to make. It was like, it probably cost about £10 to make that from scratch.
And then you look at the cost of a proper replica. Well, one of these labelled, signed replica things.
Yeah,
they cost like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And you don't want to touch it because it costs so much.
I love doing props like that. I have actually got a base to make you a ray gun at some point. It's really cool.
Well, I mean, I've been meaning to build a ray gun for myself for fucking ages. I got
like a proper 50s.
Yeah. Well, but it doesn't even have to be 50s. I mean, I just want to make something that looks like it was been cobbled together.
Yeah.
And I've got a ton
You should watch his stuff, because like one of the ones that he's done, he has like his own little obsessions, like we all do. And his one is the Blade Runner gun. And he has like 8 of them or something. And he's got like the very first one that he built when he was a kid from like really bad stills from the film and stuff. Because you couldn't get reference like you can get now.
You couldn't pause the film.
No, exactly. And trying to guess what it looked like. And it just goes all the way through it till he's got like one that he makes now in a like film quality. Like it's basically a working handgun. Built from real guns, like, he's actually managed to get hold of the original pistols they used and the original like German rifle that they used to make the top of it, and it's just like, fuck, that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It all lights up and shit,
when he was saying he made it from other bits of other guns, I just immediately had that bit from The Simpsons in my head where they're at this chili cook-off.
Oh yeah.
And Homer pulls out this ancient looking spoon.
Oh yeah.
And someone says he carved it himself from a bigger spoon.
But it's like a lot of the times, like that stuff looks so good in films is because it's just real.
Yeah,
it's that's a real gun.
Growing up, my favourite kind of technology and stuff was the stuff you saw in like Ghostbusters and Back to the Future and Explorers.
Yeah, exactly.
It was all home cobbled together stuff.
That's why the Star Wars guns and stuff look so good. Is because they're real. They get like a real like German pistol and then just like bolt a couple of things onto it like that. The Han Solo gun's built, well, as you know, from that Mauser pistol.
It just has a couple of bells and whistles
on it. Put an extra like gun sight on the side of it and things.
I think that's one of the reasons why people warmed so much to Star Wars as opposed to other science fiction things was because
it didn't look like ray guns.
It had that air of familiarity to it.
Yeah.
There was a book on Disney's Treasure Planet where they actually had a percentage. Something must look like 30% real life.
Yeah.
It must look 30% like something you would see in the real world.
Yeah.
And the rest of it can be high science fiction, as weird as you want it to be. But it has to have that 30% grounded in reality.
I think that's
just so there's a connection. So people can look at it and not feel completely weirded out by what's there.
There's something that one of my lecturers used to talk about when they talked about when they lecture on science fiction, and like it's something that's sort of very prevalent, especially in films because of the way film works. It's like you're allowed one big idea. You know, you can put forward one supposition, and then everything else in that world has to be kind of a lot more grounded. So, like if you look at things like Battlestar Galactica, there are robots that look like people. Blade Runner, again, robots that look like people. You know, that's your supposition. The rest of the world is kind of very realistic. I mean, you've got the odd flying car and stuff, but beyond that, it's just New York in the rain. Do you know what I mean? Bit of neon and stuff like that. And it's like, even Star Wars does it, where the world is familiar. The idea of like this oppressive militaristic force versus a bunch of plucky rebels. It's like, oh, it's the Second World War.
Yeah.
You know,
it's something you can wrap your head around.
The Empire even looks like the Nazis. You get it. You know, and they just go, and it's kind of a bit like a Western in space.
So it's that
and that's the only thing you have to wrap your head around is it's space. Beyond that.
And when the point where it falls apart is when in the prequels Lucas stops doing that. And
you start getting
everything weird,
multiple ideas. Yeah, and those are when films start falling down. It's different in books. Like books are bigger, denser, more complicated. You know, science fiction in novels tends to be higher brow. Because
when there's a description of something in a book, it's because it's relevant to the plot.
Yeah, but you can also accept more ideas in a novel because of the way it's delivered. Film tends to be, you've got one thing to hook it off, and when you get more than that, people tend to push it aside. You know, films.
Plus, a book doesn't have visuals. You're coming up with the stuff yourself based on what you're reading. So what's in your head would be completely different to the kind of thing a director would come up with if they were doing an adaptation.
And as an extension of that, coming back to what you were saying about the 30% thing, it's something that I talked about in lessons where I've done about concept art, where one of the examples that I've used is an illustration I did of like a character walking out to like a little speeder car thing in the desert. And I purposefully designed it off illustration or off photographs from Porsche races in the 40s and 50s and stuff like that. I might be in the 60s. Of that imagery of the same colour scheme of like the chrome car and the same sort of jumpsuit and everything that the guy wears. And I purposely did that so that there is that air of familiarity. Although what he's walking to is futuristic and it's floating and there's no wheels or any of that kind of thing, the visual is familiar. It's like you get that he's a racing driver walking to his car.
All the trappings are there
because all the stuff
indicate that,
tells you what it is. But it's a science fiction idea at the same time, and it's that same psychology. You have to have something that people can recognise to hook into, that go, oh, okay, it's that.
And if that's not the case, you need to introduce that becomes the focus of the story.
Yeah, that becomes the big idea. Because if you've got to explain it, that's your big idea.
Yeah, anything you have to explain has to be done. You have to explain it in plot.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, it becomes that crappy, clunky exposition, which ruins everything. It brings everything to a grinding halt. If you can weave stuff into
all aboard the exposition train.
If you can weave exposition into the narrative properly, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
But if you just have to sit there and explain shit,
I hate that. Like, you know, you get it a lot in movies.
I mean,
It's where they have to sort of that moment about 3/4 of the way through the film where they stop.
Yeah.
And everybody's in a room together, and they catch you up on what's happening. You know, and
Here's
it
a summary
explains
of
it all.
what you...
Yeah,
Have you been
explains
paying
to all the
attention?
characters what's going on, and make sure everybody's on the same page before we go on for the big fight at the end. And
I think I can actually apply my definition of art to that then. In my opinion, the definition of art, if you have, well, I can define what isn't art. If you have to explain what something is, it's not art.
Interesting.
That's always been my approach to actually the visual stuff. Like, if you go into an art gallery and you look at something and you need it explained to you.
Yeah, if you have to have a plaque
that's
next
not
to
art.
It, yeah, that tells you what it is.
That's not art. I mean, the plaque then becomes an excuse for that abomination being on the wall.
Yeah.
I think we can apply that to films as well. If something has to explain something...
Yeah, you failed.
Yeah, you failed.
Because it is a visual medium, and it's like, if you're not getting it
when I say it has to... if it explains... Stuff is naturally explained in a plot. If you actually have to stop the film and spell out to someone, then you fail.
Totally. If you don't get it... you know, if you haven't got it by 3/4 of the way through, something's very wrong here.
Well, actually, no, I don't want to say if you don't get it. If you don't get it, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the film's fault. Because there's a number of films which I've clicked to and thought, that's clever.
Yeah.
Right, I get it now after watching it 3 times. I can't give an example, but this is
more complicated than that.
This is why stuff gets dumbed down.
Yeah.
Because it'll get the preview screenings and then they'll ask individuals, oh, what did you think of that? And if there's some retard that says, oh, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Then they go back and they change the film.
Yeah.
And often what they're changing was perfectly fine or even better the way that it was originally filmed.
90% of the audience probably got it, but they happened to ask, the guy who didn't.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's catering for the stupidest person in the room.
It is that lowest demographic thing, isn't it? It's really annoying. We should be aspiring to be smarter, not catering down to...
Yeah, it's a sort of anti-intellectualism. Which I really hate to say it. I apologise to everyone in America for saying it. I know you're not all like that, but it's a very American thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a bookish person, you're an outcast, you shouldn't be part of society.
Yeah.
That's why there's all those cliques and stuff in America.
Yeah, this is very... But it is becoming like... It's a very westernised idea, definitely, I think. Like, the sort of concept of that books and learning and knowledge is uncool, And it's something that I really hoped we'd grow out of, but it just seems to be becoming more and more
because media is becoming more global. It's sort of like an infection that's sort of gone out there. Like if you strive to understand something, if you think, right, if I don't understand something,
but we're also in a society now at the moment where you don't get rewards for doing stuff smartly. If you try and you learn and you do things well, you don't get any payoff for it.
Mm.
But if you get naked on I'm a Celebrity, whatever, suddenly someone's throwing money at you.
Yeah, if those are like the big...
Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're dumb as a bag of bricks, but you're on telly, and suddenly you've got your own, chat show, and you're living in a giant house in Malibu. And
I wish they were... I wish those kind of shows...
Why?
I wish those kind of shows were really recognised for what they actually are. I mean, the people that make them treat them as what they are.
Victorian freak show.
That's it. It's the freak show. It's the Victorian era freak show. You pay to go into the asylum and laugh at the crazy people.
Look how stupid they are.
And the people that make those things, the people that produce those, they get it.
Yeah.
But the people that watch them and the people that line up to star in them don't.
Yeah.
And that's the tragic thing.
It is. I do just feel we're feeding the stupidity revolution. I mean, it's just kind of horrendous. I mean, all this stuff with Trump in America is
that's people getting used to being spoon-fed information rather than going out. It goes back to what we were saying. Go out and find the information yourself. Don't just sit and listen to the fucking Daily Mail.
Oh, people trust the media anyway. The amount that they know that it lies to you.
I don't want to say don't trust the media. I'm saying recognise what sources are more trustworthy than most. I mean, I used to hold the BBC.
But it's like everything has an agenda. Frame where that information is coming from. Why are they telling you this? What is their end game?
I mean, I've often thought that the best way to get the most accurate information is to actually look at 3 news sources and then compare the stories. Yeah. And if 2 of them are the same, the chances are that source is trustworthy because it's recognised by 2 separate media entities.
Yeah.
So listen to the BBC, Al Jazeera, and for shits and giggles, Russia Today. Because nothing says trust like a state-run news service.
Oh, man. What did you do today? Oh, messed with the American election.
I was going to say Fox, but that's like a joke network. It's like, is this real news?
Trump thinks it is.
We're getting political again. We can't get political. We'll depress people.
Off this. Yeah, I depress myself. I hate it. I hate it all.
But it's so funny.
It's not, though. It's not when you're in amongst it. We've said this before. If I was sat on the moon in my private space station watching it from a distance
with
a bowl of popcorn going, then that'd be fine. But when you're right in the middle of it all, it's kind of less amusing.
I know, it's the future. I just wanted my really big car with shitty gas mileage and I would have been happy.
I know, why haven't we got the Jetsons? We were promised the Jetsons and instead we're closer to somewhere, but we're living in the bad 1985 from Back to the Future.
Biff won.
I know.
Fuck.
That's literally what it feels like.
Even in the future, nothing works.
Because I rewatched it. Because I rewatched the box set. And I got to number 2. And that bit where they go back to, like, the bad 1985. And you've got Biff's tower, which is just Trump Plaza. And he wears all the same clothes and has the same haircut and everything. And I'm like, oh dear God, no. That's what we're living in.
We're in the bad future.
We're in the bad 1985. Why has this happened? Somebody got the almanac. We need to go back. We need to go into the future.
I mean, we
need to find the moment that somebody gave Trump the almanac and steal it back.
But there is hope, because we're not alone. We are not the only people on the planet railing against this. And things will get better. Things will improve. Oh. It'll take a little while, and the balance of power will have shifted, but we'll be back to where we were in the 90s. Because, do you remember how stable things felt in the 90s? Do
you know how much hope there was in the 90s?
Yeah.
Helen was talking to me about this the other day.
The internet was just taking off.
Yeah, and there was just so much positivity.
You had the dot-com boom going on.
And there was all this... You were going to leave college,
the millennium was coming
up, and you were going to do all these great things.
The millennium was coming up, and this was before everyone was freaking out over the millennium bug. That non-starter thing. Yeah, and Christ, I just thought this is 2017. There's going to be people listening to this who do not know what the millennium bug was.
No, I know, right? There's 17-year-olds listening to
the millennium bug was a thing of utter terror that scared the entire planet.
Yeah, because of a
clerical error.
Somewhere, yeah, there was a decimal point that everyone was afraid of.
Let's kill the programmers so this never happens again.
The planes were going to fall out of the sky and it was going to be the end of society as we knew it. Because instead of it being 2000, the computers were going to think it was 1800 or something and stop working.
And I'm assuming that all you 17-year-olds haven't read a history book because you're too busy tweeting or whatever it is the fuck you do. But that didn't happen.
Twittering.
Yeah.
I'm on the Twitters. Twittering.
Are you on the Twitter? That sounds like an affliction.
Oh man, we're alienating origins big time here. Just a pair of old men in a room going, I remember when it was better, when there was VHS and real movies without special effects in them.
No, but the thing is, this is just
like CGI.
Logically, I know that this is a transition period. I know that this is a bumpy point. And I know that things are going to come out the other end.
I just hope we survive.
Feeling golden. We will. We'll be fine. Wait,
Phil, what's that mushroom-shaped cloud?
Oh shit! Well, you see, the thing is, the only lunatic currently in power is Trump
and Putin.
Well, Putin's not a lunatic. Putin's just a bad guy.
And that guy in North Korea.
He's a problem. Yeah, but
the only lunatic is that one. Oh, and that one. Oh, and that other guy.
The enemy is here, and here. We are surrounded. Okay, let's look at another angle. If anything happens, it'll happen in the Pacific, which is a long way from us, so why bother? It won't hurt anyone we know or care about.
The specific.
Oh no, hang on. If something kicks off in the Pacific, then Europe will be left open to attack, and then Russia could invade Europe.
Stop it.
Fuck, I hate being...
Stop it.
Everything will be fine.
And he went, and no one you know or care about except for everyone in Australia. He was about 8 feet from all of that. On a clear day, you can see it.
Australia's not a real place, as I made that up.
Yeah, it's true. There's no way that any land could exist that was like that. 95% desert and populated by all the worst creatures on the planet. If it can eat you and poison you, it exists here. Except for wasps. We have wasps without stings. What the fuck? Upside down lunatic asylum of places.
I'll tell you what I was amazed by. When I was at
What, that you came back alive?
Yeah, well, was that? But I
survived!
No,
Yay!
I came across a bee in Australia, which is harmless. It's a non-stinging bee.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I didn't know that existed, especially not fucking Australia.
That's what I mean. It's an upside-down, topsy-turvy madhouse.
Bees that do not sting you.
Sharks the size of cars, spiders that lay eggs in your brain, like little angry bears that drop on you out of trees, giant rabbits that hop around on their back feet, every kind of snake under the sun, and bees that are harmless.
And your garden lawn. Your garden lawn is actually out to hurt you as well because
because it's made of that razor death grass that cuts your legs.
You get these little weeds called bindies, and they're little seed pods. They harden up and they become really sharp and pointy, and they stick in your feet.
Oh, good.
So yeah,
nice.
And people ask why I moved to Britain.
Horrible. It just sounds horrible. It's a place. No wonder they used to send prisoners there. Oh, we've discovered this horrendous place. It's literally at the ass end of the world. It's as far away as you can go before you start coming back, and it's full of all the worst things imaginable.
Well, it was a case of, we'll send you prisoners out there. You'll either settle a place successfully or die. Yeah. Either way, it's a win for us.
Yeah, at the same time, it's like some kind of weird natural selection. We just end up with all the toughest people going because they managed to survive and breed.
So basically, either in extreme isolation, you get Australia or Cornwall.
And also, by the look of it, we sent all the best, like, smartest con men and all the best looking hookers down there. Because prostitutes were illegal, so we sent them down there. And if, like, neighbours and things has anything to go on, they all had the best genes on the planet. It's like, there's not an ugly person here. What the hell is going on? We fucked up here, guys. We've sent all the best genetics down to the other end of the planet.
They're really into the healthy eating out there, though. I mean, they're famous for their barbecues, but they're really into the healthy eating.
Babbies.
Yeah, I felt like a total fat bastard wandering around. A really pale fat bastard.
Not from round here, right?
Well, not originally. Well, I am originally, but I've been away.
Trust me, don't listen to the accent. I really am from here.
Oh, when I was going into Australia, I had my Aussie passport, but I was talking to my mum at the time, and of course I sound like this.
Yeah.
And one of the security guards pointed me towards the route you're supposed to go through passport control if you don't have an Australian passport, a foreigner. Yeah. So
foreign.
So I was waiting in the queue there with my mum, who does have a British passport, and I got to the front and they said, "Oh, you could have gone through that queue over there." And I was sort of like, "Yeah, but the large gentleman in the uniform told me to hop in this queue, and I wasn't going to argue with him."
The scary guys just don't. And I was like, "Please don't hurt me." Or put a rubber glove on. Oh God. Well, that means we're going to have to do a cavity search. Oh, God, no.
We also had to fill out these entry and departure forms. These little...
It's one of the questions, are you Jolly Jack? Sub-question, do you draw porn for a living?
No, but they seem completely irrelevant, but we had to sign them in. We had to fill these things in and then post them to a random post box. And it didn't look like...
Was it just you?
No, it wasn't
Nobody else was asked.
It was everyone had to do this, and it was like the tail end of a long journey, and the last thing you want to do is waste time filling out a form. You just I want to exit the airport and fall into a bed, please.
Yeah, I need to lie down.
But no, you've got to write out this form first, and it seemed like the most pointless thing. And I understood the entry one. I mean, in case that flight was suddenly recorded as having some horribly contagious disease on it, they needed to know whereabouts in the country you were. But for departing, why do you need it then?
Interesting.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
There's got to be reasons.
Either the Australians obviously really like paperwork.
Yeah, maybe they do.
Yeah.
You're from there, I don't know.
I've been away a while.
They don't seem like the kind of people who'd be very into the paperwork.
Yeah, it was a really laid back place.
Yeah.
Well, I say laid back. When I went out there, I went out to Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Which was laid back. And then I went up to Brisbane, where I used to live as a kid in the 80s. And the contrast is completely different. The attitude really changes, especially on the roads. Brisbane drivers are fucking scary. I just wanted to walk everywhere.
I don't want to get in the car.
And now we've lost all the Brisbane viewers. If anyone is left listening to this, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Lies. Yeah, alienating entire chunks of the planet. Pissed off the entire of America by going, you're idiots.
No, I promise I will defend...
You're like, I'm not saying you morons, but you're morons.
I've said this 100 times, I'll say it again. I will defend American intelligence until the day that I die. My favourite movies, video games, comic books, story, they all come from over in America.
The thing is, like, every American I've met is, like, really, really smart.
Yeah, they are creative. They are creative geniuses.
Well-read people,
the
but
thing
like,
is,
strange enough, they're all the ones that are over here.
Yeah,
which implies that
they're the ones with passports.
Yeah,
they're the ones that travel.
Get the fuck out of here.
They're the ones that do not believe the world ends at the American border,
or that actually those places are in America.
Yeah,
London's here, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they think London is just the UK. Point out London on the map. They just circle all of the UK. There, that's London. No, but you get stupid people all over the world. I mean, some of the people here are thick as pig shit.
Some.
Most, okay. Like, really monstrously dumb people here. I mean, when we had
the dangerous territory.
No,
we literally got no listeners.
Do you remember when we had the riots all over the country in 2011?
Yeah.
And you had the reporters that were going up to some of the people who had done some of this stuff, and they came up with really shitty justifications for why they'd done it. Had nothing to do with the cause of it.
They wanted new trainers.
Yeah, and they were saying, "Oh, we're showing the government that they can't do what they're doing. It's a protest." You're stealing a plasma TV as protest? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, these people are arseholes, complete idiots. So, yeah, there are stupid people in every corner of the world. And it is unfair to sort of point at the Americans and say, you people are stupid. You are the benchmark.
God. And there it is. I just can't leave it.
It's like a scab. I have to pick. I've got to pick.
It's got to be some parting remark at the end of it.